All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor to be here amongst our esteemed speakers today. I am Christian Brock, CEO of Elected Officials to Protect America, a network of current and former elected officials who care deeply about protecting our planet and people. EOPA is committed to solving the climate crisis, ensuring environmental justice, and protecting our lands and waters and democracy. The residents of Dearborn, you've seen firsthand the devastating effects the climate crisis has. As temperatures rise, the threat of heat strokes loom larger. Torrential rains have overwhelmed neighborhoods, flooded thousands of homes, and the science is clear that the storms are becoming more frequent and more intense. It isn't a distant problem. It happens here, it happens right now, and it's up to all of us to do something before it's too late. The good news is, to address this climate crisis, the underlying environmental issues across the city, Dearborn Mayor Hammoud, pardon me, sir, Hammoud has established a health for all policy approach, which prioritizes health, environmental justice, and the climate actions in all of the public policies decisions. This approach has gained national recognition, with the mayor being recognized for his leadership by the Mayor's Climate Protection Award during the U.S. Congress Conference of Mayors. EOP has come to Dearborn to celebrate the revolutionary health policy that puts public health and equity at the forefront of achieving environmental quality and on the road to clean economy for all. It is exciting to hear from the city of Dearborn and how they're utilizing the historic investments through the Inflation Reduction Act and the bipartisan infrastructure law and their comprehensive citywide plan to combat the climate crisis. The Inflation Reduction Act, for those of you who don't know, provides over $369 billion in tax breaks, incentives, grants, and loans guaranteed that will help mitigate the climate crisis, which is devastating communities daily, whether weather extremes or bad air quality. As of May 24, utilizing the Inflation Reduction Act funding, the state of Michigan has introduced 45 new clean energy projects, ranging from solar to EVs and hydrogen and batteries. But putting health of the residents first and all their policy decisions, by putting health of the residents first and all of their policy decisions, the mayor and his team and partners have shown how to reduce the city's carbon footprint, create jobs, and improve everyone's health and safety. It is my great privilege, as I stumble over, it is my great privilege to introduce Mayor Hammoud. Yes, sir.
Good morning. It's great to be with you all this morning. Thank you so much for helping organize this press run today. Dearborn is no stranger to the impacts of climate and its direct impacts on the public health of our residents. Just a few years ago, nearly 2/3 of all the homes in Dearborn were underwater due to heavy rain events that oftentimes seem more frequent than these 100-year, 500-year storms are supposed to come by. Over the last 10 years, the city of Dearborn has actually had several flooding events, 3. And so we are taking all the proactive steps that we must to help prevent flooding from happening in the future. As a result, when we first came into office about 2.5 years ago, we launched our public health department with a policy in mind, health in all policies. Each and every action that we take as an administration should be directly tied to the public health of our residents. And that is the mindset and mantra that we have scattered across every single department that works collaboratively in tackling the everyday challenges that we have before us. That is why when we pursue federal funding opportunities, whether it's through ARPA, through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, or the Inflation Reduction Act, we're seeking opportunities to address public health issues. We were blessed as a city to be one of the awardees for the Safer Streets Grant on Warren Avenue, which will not only ensure that this 2-mile stretch of where we have minority-owned business owners largely, This 2-mile stretch will only address not only improving the streets and making it safer for pedestrians to cross, but at the same time, we're going to take the opportunity to invest in green infrastructure and improve the gray infrastructure, everything below the ground. With this $25 million that we received. It's historic resources that we have not had before, and we're blessed to have the opportunity to match them with county dollars and marry them with additional city dollars to see transformative investments on this corridor that has not seen such level of investment in over 25 years. The city also was able to receive CDBG disaster relief dollars. These are community block grant dollars through the disaster relief channel following what happened as it pertains to the floodings of 2021. This is to the tunes of over $20 million, which we are using to improve the resiliency of the city of Dearborn's infrastructure. These, again, are one-time historic dollars that we received due to the flooding events that occurred under the current administration in order for us to make proactive decision-making to help prevent flooding from happening in the basements of City of Dearborn residents to come. We understand what it means to be a climate-resilient city, and we're taking all the steps necessary, and we have strong partners in doing it. You're going to hear from some of the employees that we have at the city and some from strong partners, whether it's Friends of the Rouge or our Dearborn Public Schools, about how we're all collectively marching in the same direction to make sure that Dearborn is climate conscious and that we're taking all the steps necessary to ensure that we have a green future, not only for our families today, but for the future generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Next up, as the mayor mentioned, you're going to hear from several folks today. I'd like to introduce Samir, who is the Environmental Health Manager for the City of Dearborn.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for that introduction, Christian. I'm Samir Deshpande, Environmental Health Manager within the Public Health Department, and I think about environmental policy and environmental justice issues for the city. The mayor's a tough act to follow, but he set the stage really well for the problems Dearborn and the region are facing because of climate change. We know that climate change is already hurting Dearborn families. We've talked about the two storms that have overwhelmed, the multiple storms that have overwhelmed our neighborhoods, most recently in 2014 and 2021. We know that summers are getting hotter and hotter, like we've experienced this summer, with abnormal, atypical heat, both during the day and at night. And this causes problems for normal people. It drives up the price of food as crops fail. It raises energy prices as infrastructure is stressed and gets damaged. It drives up energy bills for homes and businesses trying to stay cool. It raises insurance premiums to try to protect what we have. I could keep going on. All of this hurts public health. All of this hurts pocketbooks for residents, for businesses, and for the city. So the mayor introduced some of the big projects that we're pursuing as a city to try to address these problems and the millions of dollars in federal funding that the city has brought down to pay for them. But what was also introduced was the city's health and all policies approach. And I want to talk a little bit more about how we are operationalizing that within every department in the city for the benefit of our community. Because in the face of these climate disasters, 2 500-year floods, help me with that math in a 7-year period, a wildfire season in Canada's Mountain West that's impacting us right here in Michigan, we need all hands on deck. We need to make sure that our incentives and rules are pointing in the right direction. We need to make the greenest choice the easiest choice. And that's really the city's approach to climate action, because we can rely on some small amount of people to really go far out of their way, spend a lot of money, blaze a trail for environmentalism, but most people have other things that they're focused on, right? So one initiative that I'm really excited to announce is our partnership with the University of Michigan Law School's Environmental Law and Sustainability Clinic. This is a pro bono partnership that brings the resources of one of the best law schools in the country, go blue, to Dearborn to work with us on pretty much anything environment related. So far that's been topics like our master plan, like flood mitigation, like energy. It's helping us analyze permitting, zoning, and ordinances to make sure that laws from decades ago aren't standing in the way of the innovation that we need from businesses and residents. It's helping us in the process of codifying environmental justice into everything we do as a city to try and heal from some of the wounds from decisions of the past. Ordinances and zoning, in fairness, can be pretty boring, but we've seen it time and time again that soft costs like fees and regulatory delays can really make or break a project. So on that note, we're also trying to make it easier for businesses and residents to claim Inflation Reduction Act funded energy efficiency incentives by building solar and energy efficiency landing pages on our website, dearborn.gov. That means permitting, zoning, and inspection guidance. That means resources for finding contractors and estimating feasibility. That means resources for accessing capital and claiming tax credits and rebates. It means having a one-stop shop to save you some of the time and effort of figuring out where to start and who to talk to. And finally, we're demonstrating our leadership as a city in cutting our carbon emissions and putting our money where our mouth is. That includes overhauling how the buildings on the municipal campus are powered, saving gigawatt hours, giga means a billion, of energy, and that includes being the largest city in Michigan to sign an agreement with DTE Energy to attribute 100% of municipal energy to Michigan-made wind and solar projects by 2026, projects that I'm sure will also benefit from IRA incentives. Ultimately, this is all to say that our approach here is to remove barriers, increase awareness of what's possible, and open doors for projects that are good for public health, good for economies, and good for the climate. The federal funding through the BIL of 2021 and IRA of 2022 has been and will be critical to transforming some of these projects from ideas and aspirations to real things that are making our city a better place. Our work is to continue clearing the path so that when you have a brownfield to brightfield project, when you want to put a rain garden in your house, if you want to move by bike instead of car, who knows, if you're trying to build your carbon capture project, Dearborn is the place that you do it. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about our work on behalf of the city, and I'm looking forward to checking back in the coming months and years as we notch more wins for Dearborn. Thank you.
Thank you, Samir. And as Samir mentioned, the public health aspect, there's a segment of the population that may often get overlooked. And I'd like to bring up David Mustonen from the public schools, Dearborn Public Schools, to talk about that segment of the population, which are our youth. So,
thank you and good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is David Mustonen, and I'm the Director of Communications for the Dearborn Public Schools. I'm here on behalf of our Superintendent, Dr. Glenn Maleyko. He sends his regrets for not being able to join us today. He is fulfilling a other commitment to be at a conference, a guest speaker at a conference today. He did ask me to share his appreciation for all of the financial support and the hard work that the city of Dearborn has been doing to make our community sustainable and greener for everyone involved. The Dearborn Public Schools has a long history of teaching our students to be good stewards of the environment. Almost 70 years ago, we partnered with the city of Dearborn to hold annual cleanup parades at our elementary schools. Each spring, students would share the message of picking up trash, planting, and taking care of their neighborhoods. Later, that message changed to reuse, reduce, and recycle. And today, we are educating students on the importance of creating more green space, protecting the environment from overuse and destruction, and of course, the importance of alternative energy sources. Many of us here today just attended a breakfast earlier this morning that kicked off that annual event. And now, thanks to $7.1 million in funding from the federal government in the 2022 Clean School Bus Rebate Program, the district will be able to move these lessons beyond the classroom and actually put into practice what we are talking about with the purchase of 18 electric school buses. We look forward for these buses arriving and being delivered to the district soon so that we can put them into service and remove 18 diesel buses and take them off the road. Exploring the best use for these electric buses will help in reducing emissions around all of our schools. In addition to the EV buses, work has begun on an effort to establish a special green schools project at Salina Elementary and Salina Intermediate Schools. These two schools have welcomed our newest residents for well over 100 years. They're built in the shadow of the huge Ford Motor Complex and other industrial buildings, and the area is definitely in need of some green space. We appreciate the incredible support that Mayor Hammoud has provided for this Green Schools project, including securing funding that will help in this overall effort. The Green Schoolyard project is made possible by partnerships with several community and business organizations, but it will provide an interactive outdoor learning space for our students, and it includes the planting of more than 100 trees that will create a green belt between the school area and the adjacent factories. This project will not only benefit our students, but will allow the entire Salina community to enjoy a much improved and larger green space in their neighborhood. We've been very fortunate in Michigan over the last several years to have leaders at the state level who have provided favorable operational funding for schools in our state. However, those funds do not cover the infrastructure costs that we face here in Dearborn. With almost a dozen buildings, about a third of our inventory, approaching 100 years in age, we look forward to any future financial assistance that will help us in creating more energy efficient and green school buildings. You know, when I was a kid, Woodsy Owl used to tell us, give a hoot, don't pollute, right? And later on, we fought to keep dangerous chemicals out of our waterways or from punching holes in the ozone layer. The discussion about the environment and climate is nothing new, but the focus of that discussion has changed over the years, and that's okay. It's okay to change the focus and to change that conversation. But what's not okay is to stop the conversation. When we stop the conversation, when we stop talking about taking care of this planet, and when we stop talking about looking at ways to make this world a better place, that's what's dangerous. We applaud the leaders and policymakers who are willing to keep that conversation going and bring about the change that creates a sustainable and safe planet for everyone. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you, David. And as the mayor mentioned, through his leadership and the work that the city employees or staff is doing, he mentioned that it's a partnership. It's something you have to work together. And so I'd like to introduce Ashely Flintoff from the Friends of Rouge, please.
Thank you so much. I want to start by thanking the Honorable Mayor Hammoud and the elected officials to Protect America for inviting me here today to represent Friends of the Rouge. Friends of the Rouge was formed in 1986 to restore, protect, and enhance the Rouge River watershed through stewardship, education, and collaboration. We envision a future where a clean and vibrant Rouge River is the center of our community, and where individual and community actions protect and improve the health of the river, assuring that its natural, economic, and recreational value enhances the quality of life in the Rouge River ecosystem. As a downstream community within the watershed, the city of Dearborn is both directly and indirectly impacted by decisions made in and around the physical environment. Choices made by communities upstream related to stormwater runoff, chemical usage, and degradation of natural habitats disproportionately impacts residents in Dearborn, causing flooding and sewage backups in residential basements. This creates direct mental and physical health consequences for residents, particularly those in the hardest hit neighborhoods like the South End. Likewise, the heavy industrialization that spurred growth in cities like Dearborn also has had a major impact on neighborhoods. While I realize that this sounds hopeless, I want to highlight how innovative leaders like Mayor Hammoud are working with residents and organizations like Friends of the Rouge to mitigate many of these negative activities. By leveraging both federal and philanthropic funding, Friends of the Rouge has led a series of transformational projects in the city of Dearborn that are having immediate impact on the lives of residents. For example, a rain garden is a native plant garden designed to capture, store, and soak up rainwater before it has a chance to run off into storm drains. Reducing water flowing into storm drains helps reduce pollution in our local rivers, prevents flooding, while native plants provide food and habitat for pollinator insects, butterflies, birds, and other wildlife. Friends of the Rouge's Rain Gardens to the Rescue program is a series of workshops designed to teach people how to create rain gardens of their own. We've held multiple Rain Gardens to the Rescue workshops in Dearborn South End, resulting in residential installations that mitigate flooding and beautify neighborhoods. We've also planted rain gardens and or pollinator gardens, and you kind of stole my thunder here, but at Salina Intermediate, Laurie, Oakman, Gear Park, and Lindbergh schools, including Allegria Village Retirement Community. Next year, a nature playscape that has already been mentioned and is going to be beautiful is going to be added to Salina Elementary. In addition to the rain gardens, we've planted 250 trees and shrubs at Salina schools to act as a green buffer for noise and pollution, mitigating the effects of industrialization adjacent to the schoolyard. We've secured funding to support the city of Dearborn in planting hundreds of street trees, and next year we hope that number will be in the thousands. Street trees play a crucial role in reducing heat island effect, aiding in carbon sequestration, and reducing runoff in urban areas. All of this work has led to deeper connections with the Dearborn community, with groups like Concerned Residents of South Dearborn, and with the city itself. We are thrilled to be partnering with the city over the next few years to expand our rain gardens to the rescue program, to offer workforce development training through a stormwater specialist training program. We will also be partnering with the city to install and maintain 5 large rain gardens on vacant municipal lots, which increases the city's ability to manage runoff and reduce flooding and basement backups. As you can see, this is a truly special partnership, and we are so excited to continue to work with the city of Dearborn to take real, actionable steps and address the impacts of climate change and urbanization while beautifying the city, providing crucial habitat for pollinators, and working towards our goal of a clean and vibrant Rouge River. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashely. So as we come to a close and we'll open up for a few questions here, one of the questions I get asked or have been asked is, why is the EOPA doing these press conferences? Why are we here in Dearborn today to talk about the Inflation Reduction Act and all this federal funding? And why Dearborn? The answer is simple. Dearborn is a clear example of how those funds, that a portion of that $396 billion can be implemented to solve local problems, to work on local projects, to support local needs. And we found that nationwide, a lot of communities, a lot of residents don't know that this funding is out there or how to go about accessing it. And we're here today, as we have been in Michigan this week, to to highlight that this funding is available to communities, through the municipalities, through the state's services, to access that funding to address those projects and needs that you have. With that, I'd like to open it up for a few questions. I know we have some questions online and some here in person. So.
Thanks for having us today. Of course, this is a nonpartisan event, but of course we can't ignore the elephant in the room. We're so close to the election, 11 days now, and you haven't endorsed the candidate. But this event here even touts Biden administration initiatives. So can you speak to the timing of this, given that information?
Yeah, for us, I think this is just how it worked out from a calendar perspective. I don't want to take away from the press conference, but here's what I'll say. The Dearborn residents are residents of strong morals and values, and they care about what's happening in their backyards. And as an administration, it's my responsibility to work with whomever's in office to draw down all the resources that we can to help improve the quality of life for my residents. And that's the responsibility that we bear and that we have, and that's the job that we are doing. But it's also a community whose values stretch far beyond just the borders of this country. And so the same things that we're advocating to be happening here in our backyards, we hope whoever's in the White House also applies those same values to the backyards of folks all across this globe.
So this isn't an endorsement, especially since President Trump has openly said that he hasn't acknowledged climate change. You're saying that this isn't an endorsement, it's just we believe in this.
Yeah, this is not an endorsement of any candidate. This is an endorsement of policy. We appreciate strong environmental policy. We understand that climate change is real. And again, as a city, we're trying to think innovatively. If anything, this press conference should serve as an example to other municipalities about how you can be innovative. For many municipalities, the idea of a health and all policies approach is not something that they have ever applied. And so we'd like to be the model for how other municipalities can apply a health and all policies approach to help bringing down dollars to ensure that your city is resilient and to making investments in not only gray infrastructure but also green infrastructure. That's largely what we're advocating for here. Yep.
How are the IRA and BIL grants assisting with your health and all policies with issues that you don't have money for?
Yeah, the big one I can highlight is just receiving $25 million to help improve the Warren Avenue stretch. This is a 2-mile stretch on a county road. And although it's a county road and they assume the responsibility, we as a city were the ones who applied for the grant funding to help draw down. And we're layering it with city dollars and county dollars to help transform this 2-mile stretch to become more resilient, to become more pedestrian friendly, and to improve the quality of life for not only the business owners and also the third largest employer in the whole city who is on Warren Avenue, Hollingsworth, but for the residents in the surrounding neighborhoods.
Where else can people see these impacts of the investments in health initiatives that you're taking?
Our goal is that we are trying to make our investments in all corners of the city. Whether it's rain gardens that we're in partnership with Friends of the Rouge and planting all across the city. Just yesterday, we've begun actually transforming city easements into rain gardens as well. This is the first of its kind project, which we're working on. And so the first, I think, 10 to 12 rain gardens instead of grass easements is being installed. We are currently using CDBG disaster relief dollars to help make a $25 million investment on improving the current gray infrastructure that we have, making those more resilient. We have a giant sewer line on the streets, Colson and Palmer. 6 foot of the line is filled with sediment and debris, and so it doesn't even offer the capacity that this line should offer. So we're in the process now of going through utilizing the dollars that we received from the federal government to help improve and make investments there. We just completed a 2-year study in support with our city council to evaluate our stormwater infrastructure system, and it came back. We're going to be looking at somewhere between $550 million to $800 million in needs to help really tackle the basement flooding crisis here in the city of Dearborn. That's going to be 15 years worth of investments. So the point of this conference is to say each and every single dollar that's available, we need. $300 billion is great. You're going to need a lot more billions because the city of Dearborn is telling you that we need close to $1 billion. And we're a city that's 23 square miles and 110,000 residents. A lot more resources are going to be needed in order for cities to make themselves resilient for the future to come.
Do you think a lot of the residents know about what's happening?
I think that we often find ourselves speaking in environmental terms. Talking climate change, talking, carbon footprints and impacts and ozones. I think what people understand is their basement's flooded. And what they want to understand is, what is the solution that you're putting forward to help prevent my basement from flooding? What is the solution you're putting forward to help bring down my electric bill? What is the solution you're putting forward so that I can attain a high efficiency appliance within my house? What is the solution you're putting forward so that when I'm walking in a parking lot and what seems to be an empty parking lot because we might be trying to look for new opportunities of public transit, or you smell the smell of diesel as you're walking by, what are you doing to help bring in more electric vehicles, electric chargers, convert these deserts of asphalt, and try to add more greenery? That's what residents understand. And so we got to do a better job as civic leaders and communicating and talking with residents about the actual challenges as opposed to sticking to the science. And I'm an epidemiologist. We can get lost in statistics and numbers whenever you like. But the goal is to talk to people and meet them where they are and hopefully offer solutions that are understandable. I think I have time for, yeah, perfect. Great. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Really appreciate your time, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you. Really, the way the mayor put it, one, I understand why you're mayor of the city. And then your passion for the people here comes through clearly, and your leadership is a great example to other cities within Michigan, and more importantly, across the nation. And that's why we're here to recognize Dearborn. I think to that, I say, okay. Mr. Mayor, thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
We have an online question for Samir Deshpande.
Great.
The city is pursuing significant federal funding for both climate mitigation and adaptation projects. Can you elaborate on the role that the CDBG-DR funds and collaboration with the Friends of the Rouge have played in building green stormwater infrastructure across flood-prone areas, and how this has improved the resilience for those communities?
Yeah, sure. And so maybe I'll start, and I'll turn it over to my colleague if I miss anything. So we know from the science that the storms are getting stronger, more rain in a shorter period of time. And the mayor has mentioned the significant price tag that we're going to need to pay for the improvements that are going to try to solve this problem. So the CDBG DR money that we received after the 2021 storm is helping us start that process of making some of those investments. We're focusing on parts of the city that experience the most flooding. We're trying to make sure that the investments are being targeted where they need most. And so that money is the first step that the city is taking alongside a whole bunch of other projects, whether it's small, whether it's making it easier for a resident to put a rain garden in their yard, whether it's changing the amount of impermeable surface that we have in the community and how and where water is stored. So I'd say that's kind of the first step that's starting to pay for some of these investments that we're trying to make over the long term and that residents are going to see popping up in their communities in the coming days, months, and years.
Yeah, so I think everything that Samir just said, I think what's really important is to think about this regionally and think about this as an ecosystem. And so you have to have a mix of the large infrastructure projects, and then you need to have smaller, more immediate impact projects that align together to allow for our region to really actually address this issue. So there's combined storm sewer that we need to address as a region of Southeast Michigan, but there are things that residents can do to have immediate impact on the flooding in their streets, the backups in their basements. So we were really excited that the city of Dearborn is so innovative in taking this approach to think about this from a cohesive, comprehensive strategy and looking at the big scale projects and looking at the small scale projects and learning how to marry those two together in order to create a regional solution to these issues. And so rain gardens, both at the residential level, at the school and city level, municipal level, combined with the massive infrastructure work that the city is taking on, really are going to have a significant impact, and I think set this city and set this partnership with organizations like Friends of the Rouge up as an example across the nation for how we can work together and really start to solve these issues and mitigate the impacts of climate change.
The other thing that I'll just jump back in and add is that, for stormwater, for example, and green stormwater infrastructure projects, obviously those are focused on flooding as the primary thing that we're trying to address. But they have a range of other benefits for the community that increase the value of that investment, in community and economic terms, right? So if we're taking, if we're taking parking lots, abandoned, unused parking lots, and turning those into green space, that's activating value in the community. That's expanding the amount of green space. That's making it a better place to just spend time. And that also brings positive economic impacts for the city beyond just stormwater mitigation.
Yeah.
There's a continuation question for Ms. Ashely Flintoff. How do you see this collaboration with the city evolving over the next few years?
I think that I see this collaboration with the city expanding exponentially. So as my colleague here just mentioned, a number of us were at an event this morning for junior commissioners of the City Beautiful Commission within the city of Dearborn, and it was so inspiring to see to talk with these students and hear about all of the work that they're doing and all the ideas and the excitement that they have to implement things like rain gardens, like tree plantings, like infrastructure work within their own neighborhoods, within their communities, and at their schools. And so I see this partnership expanding to even more schools, even more residential areas, more communities, more neighborhoods, as we really start to work from the ground up and build these relationships with the community to get this work out there and to really start to impact the environment. Samir mentioned, the infrastructure, this green green stormwater infrastructure has impacts beyond just flooding. It has impacts on keeping out plastics and contaminants that are in our stormwater runoff that get into our combined stormwater sewer system and then into our rivers and into our children who are trying to play and recreate around these areas. And so it has mental impacts, it has health impacts, it has infrastructure impacts. And so I see our relationship just expanding and growing to cover the whole city in rain gardens and in stormwater infrastructure.
We have an online question for David. Forgive me for mispronouncing your name.
Yep, come.
That's good. Yes.
The Dearborn Public School System has long focused on environmental stewardship, and now federal funding is helping transition to electric school buses. How are these efforts contributing to both environmental and health improvements for students, particularly in neighborhoods with high asthma rates?
Wow, that's a lot. I'll just say that the partnerships that we've created with the city, with organizations like Friends of the Rouge, have made a big difference in our schools and in the impact that it has had on our students and the families that live around our schools. The city of Dearborn, the Dearborn Public Schools, has a long history of neighborhood schools. So our schools are in these neighborhoods. So what happens at our schools happens in the neighborhoods. What happens in the neighborhoods happens at our schools. So the more that we can partner with these organizations, the more that we can do to make our surrounding areas around our schools more sustainable, more green. I think the benefits for our students and for the families that live around our schools will pay off greatly in the long run. So.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you all. I really appreciate your joining us here today to speak on such important issues for the city of Dearborn and actually for the state of Michigan. I don't think we have any other questions, so really appreciate you all joining us today, and have a great day. Thank you.